Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fourlane's webinar. I am Denise Ortiz, a senior consultant here at Fourlane, and today we're going to discuss item categories and how to use them. So topics we're going to cover today are going to be category setup, organizing with categories, and reports with categories. Now, why would we use categories? So using item categories allows us to group similar items together without the use of header and sub relationship. Also, using report filters of categories for a high level or a more focused view on specific reports. I will say there are some pros and cons to using categories. So I'll list a couple of them. So using categories can eliminate the need for grouping the item list together without the need for header and sub relationship. So this can make your item list a little cleaner. However, if you still want to use header and sub relationship on items, the sub items must be the same category as the header item. From a transaction standpoint, you can find and select items with the filter option of category right from the item field. This is available on purchase orders, estimates, sales orders, invoices, and sales receipts, but it is not available on item receipts, bills, or customer credit memos, nor can the category field be added onto templates. And then in reports, category is available on most inventory reports, but it is not available on all reports and lists. And we'll go over some of those and we'll see what they look like. Okay. So let's get started with some category setup. So over here in QuickBooks, what we want to make sure is categories are enabled first, coming up to Edit and Preferences, coming into our items and inventory, company preferences, and then we want to make sure our activate categories is enabled. Once we have that enabled, we can start organizing our category list. So coming up to our category list, it's under lists, category list. This is where you can add, edit, and delete categories. One thing to note though, you cannot inactivate a category. You can go multiple layers deep, up to 4 layers deep. If I simply click on one of my categories, I can see what items fall within this category. So for example, if I click on bush, I have my items that are categorized to landscape material, sub-item of bush, as well as ornamental grasses, etc. If you do have a long list of items to choose from within your categories, you do have a handy search field to narrow down your list. So if I come in here and I search for bush, if I search for blue, I can narrow down my list by my blue hydrangeas, as well as if I search for pink. So it kind of sets the stage for me narrowing things down. So I can search for my items this way. One thing to note is when you do add new items in your list, by default, they do go to the uncategorized category. So from this window, what we can also do is some batch adding or modifying. From the Manage Categories button down here at the bottom, I can choose to add or edit categories and items in mass. This does bring me to our Add, Edit Multiple List Entries. So I can add in mass from here, copying and pasting from an Excel into our category list to the respective items. What I can also do on the Manage Categories button is I can add new items, I can edit, or I can delete categories here as well. What I can also do within this window is I can batch recategorize from here. So if I come to my uncategorized item list, I'll see all of my items that are uncategorized. Now I have inactive and active items. So if I want to narrow it down, I'll choose to not see my inactive items, narrows my list down. And then from here, I can batch reclass. So I can choose one or more items. And if I choose the batch action down here at the bottom, I can move to a different category. So from here, from uncategorized, I'm going to move them into my bush category. Okay, so now they fall off my uncategorized. If I look in my bush category now, I have my hydrangeas and my roses. So some other buttons that we do have also available within our category list is this items button. From here, I can add a new item right here on the fly. This does bring me to my items profile, and I can add it here. I can also come in here and customize my columns for if I wanted to see different columns in my background. So if I customize, I can choose from my available columns on the left and then add them onto the columns I want to see in the background here, and vice versa if I want to remove columns. So I just removed my units of measure column for my viewing. Some of the other buttons that we have is the activities button. This one's pretty cool. I can go straight into a transaction and create a new one. So from here, I can come into creating an invoice, creating a sales receipt, sales or purchase order, as well as going into my items receipts, changing prices, and even going right to a build assembly. So if I click right on my create invoice, it brings me to my invoice transaction screen. On the reports button, there's only a few choices that I have here in this moment. So right now I can print out a report of my price list or my items list, or I can go straight into a sales report. So I do have a few sales reports handy. Now, I will have you know that the category list and functionality in this moment is only available on the sales by item summary. On our Excel button, I can import, I can paste from Excel, and export items. So paste from Excel does bring me to my edit multiple list entries. And then also the import items does use the in-product import tool. Okay, so those are a few of the buttons that we do have available from within our category list. So let's take a look at some of these already categorized items on our list views. So over here in our items list, you can see I have added my category column here already on my items list. If yours does not have it, if I simply right click on the anywhere within our items list, I can customize the columns, choose from our available columns that I can view, and then hit the add button and then add it to my chosen columns for my viewing. So from here, with a category list displayed, I can do some sorting based on columns, clicking the title row, can sort ascending or descending. I can also do some searches within this item list based on information in my category field. For example, if I'm going to search for uncategorized and I search, I'm going to narrow down my list and it's going to bring me all of those items that are categorized as uncategorized. So not only is this available here, but also if you are using the Inventory Center, we have the same functionalities. I can come into my Inventory Center, the menu option on the left. If I right-click in here, I can customize my columns. Of my available columns, I can choose category and then add it to my viewing. Now I can see my categories listed here. Same thing, I can do a sort ascending or descending based on the category title. And then I can even search within here, not only on the item, but the category as well. So if I type in uncategorized, I can narrow down my list here. So the same functionalities. So that's kind of organizing and how we can see it on our lists. Let's see how we see it on transactions. So as mentioned before, we do have the search field on a few of our transactions in our create estimate transaction. I can come in here and within the item field, I can find and select items and then filter by category. So if I click on that option, if I want to filter by my category, I can filter based on bush, and I'll see each of my items that are categorized under landscape material, sub-item of bush. From here, I can choose all or multiple items, then to add onto my transaction. So that's one way I can search and filter for that. So you can use this function in not only estimates, but in sales orders. I have this available. I can do it on invoices. I have it available. I can do it on sales receipts. I can search for that. And then as well as on purchase orders. I can do a filter and search for my items. But one thing to note, it does not how we can add items right here by typing in a couple characters. If I chose to try and search and add the character by say that uncategorized, it does not work. So if you want to use the filter option to narrow down your choices in order to get items added on to your transactions. Okay, so how does this kind of look if we're not using header and subs? So if I search by my items of bush, and I'll choose one of these items here, I'm going to add it on to my purchase order so I can see just a single high-level view of my item here. Now, if we are keeping with the header and sub relationship, I'm going to use my green widget, which is a sub-item of wonderful widgets. I can see on my transaction, I will see that header, colon, and then the sub-item related to that. So using categories can make it a little bit cleaner when we're viewing these or searching and filtering by them. And again, I would like to note that the category field is not an available option to add on to any of our templates. Okay, so that's kind of how we can use it in the transaction level. So let's look at some of our reporting. Okay, category details categories can be detailed and filtered on some of our reports and our lists. So some of the reports are list reports. We can get it on a price list, and we'll show you each one of these as well. We can get it on an item list. Those are the list options. Now, what other reports can we get them on? Our inventory reports. We can get it on an inventory summary report. but we cannot get it on our inventory valuation report. I can filter and display categories on my stock status by item report. But I cannot display or use categories on our stock status by vendor report. I can use it on my inventory turnover report. But I cannot use it on any of my assembly shortage reports. But I can use it on my physical inventory worksheet. Cannot use it on my build assemblies, my pending builds report. But I can use it on my negative inventory list. And then the one sales report that does utilize the category functionality is my sales by item summary. Okay, so those are the reports that can utilize the category, either showing it at the column level or filtering option. So let's take a look at some of these reports. So I'm going to start with the inventory valuation summary report. Okay, so by default, it does total by category. So I can see my landscape material, sub-item of bush, and I can get a subtotal by my quantity on hand of bushes, as well as my asset value. Or I can get it as a total landscape material, total on hand, and total asset value. So it can be helpful in that essence. What I can also do on here is there is a handy function of hiding categories. So if I choose it, I want to see a high-level view of my inventory valuation, not by category. I can toggle that off and I'll get my high-level view. Toggling it back on. What I can also do is collapse the rows. So if I collapse the rows, I can see a simple report and narrow down on landscape material. By expanding it, I can collapse the individual sublayer rows. So if I want to see a high level of just bushes or just my ornamental grasses, how many I have on hand and what those values are. Now, what I can also do is customize my report. If I come over here to customize the report, I can add the category column. Okay, so that does add my column here on my report. If I choose, I can also move it over if I like it closer to my items. And then I can also filter. So if I customize the report and I filter by category, and I'm going to choose my category of bush, I can narrow down my inventory report based on those categories. So I think that would be super helpful for inventory management when we want to see just specific things that we have on hand. So the next report that utilizes this functionality is the inventory stock status by item report. So by default, it does come already with our category column already displayed for us. Very similar to the inventory valuation. We can do collapsing of the rows and hiding of the categories. So toggling our little handy button here of hiding categories, I can hide the categories and see a high-level view. Expanding that, I can also collapse my rows as well. Can collapse by high-level landscape material or by the sub layers as well. Okay. If we wanted to as well, if I customize it, I can filter by category of bush So this way we can narrow down our list view or a report view from here. And again, super helpful for inventory management. They want to see of what's in stock and available for just bushes and knowing if they need to create a new purchase order. Our next report is the inventory turnover. By default, it does come with the category listed here as well. One thing to note though, it does not have our hide category button, okay? Nor can we collapse our rows, okay? But it does have our category column. So if we wanted to search for specific categories, what I can also do in here, if I customize it, I can filter by category of bush. Okay, so I can narrow down my inventory turnover report and segregate it by our different categories of our landscape material. Okay. Our next report that this is available on is our physical inventory worksheet. Our physical inventory worksheet does come with category already listed in here. And again, do not have my hide category button, nor do I have the ability to collapse my rows. But I can filter by category. So if we're doing a physical inventory out in the field, I can just run this report based on the specific items that I want to do a physical inventory count of, okay? Our next report, negative inventory listing. Now, from here, again, I do not have that hide category button. And customizing is, I think, a little bit limited. So what I can do is add the category field, but I cannot filter by a category. So if I wanted to add that onto my list, I can add it, but I cannot filter by it. And then finally, our sales by item summary report. Utilizing this, we can also kind of narrow in on our items by summary based on our different categories. So similar to our inventory evaluation, it does total by our categories. So I have total landscape material that we sold 1 bush, and then I can also see by the sublayer, and I sold the 1 bush as well. So I can see it by the different layers of our categories. I can collapse my rows to see a high-level view if I choose to. I can hide the category for a high-level view, just seeing our inventory and our different types of items and what was sold. So I can enable this. A couple of things if I want to categorize or customize this report. I cannot add category as one of my columns. So that is one thing. But I can filter by category. So I'll choose bush. Okay. So there are some reports that can utilize it. And then there's some that have some specific things that it cannot do. So there are pros and cons to it, but I think overall, it can be very helpful on categorizing our lists, maybe not using custom fields and implementing categories into our daily routine and some of our workflows, okay? So I hope you did find some of this information valuable and insightful, and hope you have some takeaways of what you can do in your day-to-day workflow. Thank you and have a great day.